Adapted from the 1992 novel of the same name, Poor Things is directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, and it stars Emma Stone as a reincarnated adult with a child's brain, turning the Frankenstein tale on its head with Willem Dafoe as a mad scientist of sorts. And honestly, that's like the least wackiest aspect of this film. There's so much to unpack, and trying to summarize this one is tough. If you're at all familiar with the other films directed by Lanthimos, you'll know he loves making weird shit, and yeah, this is no exception. It's easily the most unhinged and comedic film of his to date. It's much less grounded and a lot more absurd than any of his previous works. It's his most stylistically ambitious, with possibly the best cinematography of the year. This happens to be Lanthimos' second collaboration with DP Robbie Ryan, and just like their work on The Favorite, the lenses are ultra wide and the sets are beautifully lit. They're doing some really out there things with the visuals here. Some shots having vignettes around the frame, and the jumps from black and white to colorful hues. On top of that, there's also an immense amount of artistry and craftsmanship in the set design, costumes, makeup, and visual effects. This Victorian era inspired world that they've built has a whimsical, surrealist flair to it all that comes together so cohesively, and it perfectly fits the mold of the film's screenplay. This film has such an unapologetically obscene script that does not care to pull punches. Lanthimos has always been fascinated with the topic of sex in his films, but this one really doubles down and centers it as one of the integral themes. In a year where everyone is debating the necessity of sex scenes in film, Lanthimos challenges us, with this being one of his most provocative entries to date. The good news is that he doesn't make films with the sole reason to provoke. Poor Things is actually a pretty great absurdist mirroring of society's prudishness towards sex. It's a film touching on themes of bodily autonomy and the sexual dynamics between men and women, while also in a weird way being a sort of coming-of-age film. I've seen a couple people compare this film to Barbie, which I would never have guessed to be an apt comparison before seeing it, but it actually kind of tackles similar subject matter, albeit better. I think Poor Things does a really good job of staying on track, rarely deviating from its core ideas, unlike Barbie. The film uses Emma Stone's character Bella Baxter as a conduit to observe the normative understandings of womanhood and promiscuity. She's a fish out of water. Her father, played by Willem Dafoe, instills this idea of empiricism and rationality, laying the foundation for how she prods at philosophical ideas. This creates many opportunities for her to question the standards or reveal nonsense in preconceived notions, and it is all done with a great comedic effect. And of course, credit has to be given to Emma Stone for her phenomenal performance, certainly one of the best of the year. She does a brilliant job of depicting her character's growth and progression, with her gradual change in mannerisms and understanding of the world around her. Emma Stone has had a lot of experience with comedic roles, and I think she's really mastered her timing and expressiveness. Everything seems to come so naturally to her. Bella Baxter is a character that you can get behind because of Stone's portrayal of that naive but inquisitive childlike mind. As for the other performances, I think everyone does a great job. Willem Dafoe's character is this damaged person who had a clearly abusive father that passed down that incessantly pragmatic view of the world, but I like that his character has this warmth to him despite that. I think he'll be nominated for this one, although I don't know if he'll win because it's looking to be a pretty close race for Best Supporting Actor, assuming the Academy gets the nominations right, of course. Mark Ruffalo is also pretty decent here, even if I found it hard to dissociate his character from him as a person. I feel like he has such a distinct demeanor that can kind of bleed over into his performances, which can either work really well or hinder them. I think in films like Zodiac or Dark Waters, it amplifies the character, whereas here it does feel like he's a bit outside of his comfort zone, but I think that's good for him. I like seeing that he's evolved into these more abstract and out there roles. Every character in Poor Things has some level of depth to them, even if some appearances are more brief than others. They're all there to challenge Bella and her rapidly developing worldview, and they all serve a purpose. As for the pacing of this film, I think it does a pretty good job of staying on track. It does stagnate a little bit in the second act, but overall it maintains a steady tempo. This is the longest film from Lanthimos so far at 2 hours and 20 minutes, but I think it achieves that aforementioned cohesiveness so well, filling the runtime appropriately. It's not a long film in comparison to some of the other epics that came out this year, but considering how unconventional Poor Things makes itself out to be, it had every opportunity to go off the rails, but it didn't. I mean, there is a brief moment where it attempts to insert some economic commentary that doesn't really expand into anything more, making it feel like a bit of a non sequitur, but at worst, I'm indifferent about that. Everything else feels complete, and without spoiling anything, when we get to the final moments of the film, it does come together in a sensible and satisfyingly circular fashion, as if everything was wrapped in a neat bow. Also, the music for this film is genuinely amazing. I think this might be my favorite score of the year. The instrumentation is just so perfect, and again, it just adds to the cohesiveness and stylistic direction of the film. Overall, what Lanthimos gets right is intention. Every film he's made is purposeful. He calls into question the gendered constructs around sex through the absurdist lens. Bella Baxter speaks very literally about things that are often left unsaid, and that makes us laugh. Lanthimos will hold a shot for just a little longer than we'd expect to make us do a double take. I love that he playfully challenges social norms, but he doesn't put himself above anyone for doing so. There is a genuine inquiry behind his process. If there's one filmmaker that can get away with obscenities, it's Lanthimos. There's an intrinsic connection between sexuality and human nature, thus an appropriate inclusion of it in the message that he's trying to get across. I appreciate that he knows what he wants his films to be, and he sticks to it. This is now the second film in a row where he doesn't have a writing credit, and it's been interesting to see how he fully helms the role of director. I think this is probably the funniest film of the year, and even if you don't care too much about a film's subtext, this is at the very least a fun time and a technical marvel. Out of the bunch of provocative weird comedies to come out in 2023, this is the best and most focused one by far. Lanthimos is a trailblazer, and whatever he does next, I'll be there for it. Apparently he's already got another film with Emma Stone shot and ready to go. Anyways, go watch this movie, it's great, and there's plenty of things to ruminate about that I didn't cover in this video, so it's definitely worth checking out. I really don't want to understate how hilarious Poor Things is. Everyone at the screening that I went to was laughing their ass off the entire time, unlike my experience with Dream Scenario. But with all that being said, you made it to the end of the video, so you might as well leave a like and you might as well subscribe. Also, let me know how you're feeling about this one in the comments. You can follow me on other platforms linked in the description below, but yeah, thanks for watching.